fortunately, I met my future wife. And at that time, she was like, "You should be a nurse." And I was like, "I don't think so." I was a little bit more
Oh,
emphatic
tell
than
them
that.
what you really said.
I don't recall 100%.
Tell them how you really felt about us.
I felt not enthusiastic. I would say that.
Oh,
Is that
come
okay? Is that
on,
enough?
come on.
I
You
was.
said, I will never do what you do.
I didn't bop my head like this.
Never.
I did not move my head like this.
Yes, you did. You moved your head,
I was more
and
like,
you really yelled. You really
well,
yelled.
everybody yelled. It was New York, and
We were at dinner.
we were.
We were at dinner.
People were yelling too.
No,
The chef yelled. Anyways,
you
the
were the
point
only
is,
one yelling.
no, I. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back. My name is Jeff Dominguez.
I'm Elisa.
We are Mr. and Mrs. RN, and I'm actually pretty excited because today's our first episode on the video. Prior to this, we were trialing and error a lot of different things in audio, but I'm really excited. This is our first one.
I'm excited too.
All right. So, as you know, we get together weekly, if possible, but we get together to discuss different topics in healthcare, particularly those in nursing. And what do we want to talk about this time?
I think we're going to talk about education.
Boring, super, super boring, but very important, very
Oh,
important. No, I actually am excited about this. I thought that we had discussed about how we wanted to discuss, or rather, we wanted to share with you all our experience in education when it comes to our career track, and also share with you a lot of the tidbits that we learn through our mentors and we learn through our journey as well. In the hopes that all of you can sometimes glean something that you might not know, but really just being there for you all and being able to provide some insight.
yeah, I think too, a lot of the reason why we started this podcast was to tell our story and to realize that, you know, there's some bumps in the road and
Lots of bumps.
and I guess process together,
The
right?
major Deegan Expressway bumps.
Like, yeah, big New York City potholes.
Yes, that was our old way back home to the Bronx when we lived there. So a lot of potholes, a lot of bumps, but we hope that you'll get to learn a little bit something in an effort to avoid those bumps. So here we go.
Yeah.
So do you want to start first with your particular because you had a lot more bumps than I have bumps. I feel like my road was a little bit better paved. Yours was like the Bronx in the '80s.
It was really, really difficult. Yeah. There was no, I don't think there was any easy way to get there. I started out in a 4 year traditional program where I was accepted into the nursing program. For those of you out there that don't know, just because you get into a school for nursing, a university or college, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're accepted into the nursing program. You may be accepted into that university, but not necessarily accepted into the nursing program. You may have to test in.
And that usually takes about 2 years in, right? Then after that,
Then you have to test.
but then you also have to take your prereqs before those 2 years too. So now you have to take a load of course load, and you have to test in.
Right, exactly. So I was fortunate to get into a school where I did not have to test in or take a prerequisite to get into the program. I was accepted into the program. But because of some personal circumstances with my family, um, I and also financial situation, I went to two 4 year schools in 1 year. And then I decided that it was going to be so much loans, and I really didn't know um, what I was going to do with those loans.
Pay
Um,
them.
it
That's all you
was
can do.
it was just really unprecedented for me personally because I didn't have anybody in my family who had taken out a lot of debt to go to school.
Mm,
My brother um, did not take on the kind of debt that I was thinking about at the time, which
mm.
was I think about $60,000.
That's
Um,
it's a pretty penny.
which at 18 years old, I really was like, that sounds awful. I I don't even know, what to do with that. So at the age of 19, I decided to go to a 2 year school out of a hospital that my guidance counselor told me about that her sister had gone there.
Hmm.
I had to test in, but I think I passed the test. I don't really
I would
remember.
hope so, since you already graduated from numerous times, right?
I don't remember. I don't remember whether I had to pass the test or not, actually. It was pretty traumatic. I kind of like blacked out the whole situation. Um, so nevertheless, I went to two different 4-year schools and then a 2-year school, which was extremely difficult. And um, from there, that's when I got my licensure from my associate degree
I
at
see.
the age of 21.
Got it. Yeah. And I think that's when we met, when you were still with your associate's degree. So all of this happened BJD, right? Before Jeff Dominguez.
Oh,
So,
uh-oh. Uh-oh.
because no, wait, the last time we did this podcast, you said that I told you that if you if you wanted to continue dating, you had to get your bachelor's. So
Yes,
that
you did say
continues. That was
that.
another bump in the road. That was I created that pothole, but
I think that was a threat.
we
I think.
paved the bump. Now it's smooth. I hope. So then you worked. You worked. You did your thing. You were an ER nurse, charge nurse. You did your thing in New York City. You were right in smack of everything, right? Right in the middle of Manhattan. And so tell me, did you want to go back to school? Did you want to get your bachelor's? Were you like, I want to get my master's. I want to do this. I want to do that.
No. No, I think because everything was so traumatic for me. I think particularly with my family, not understanding the finances, not even understanding really how to balance career and payments and
Right.
never really having a good financial background. I really didn't want to go ahead with more school because it just said to me like, wow, bills like that, I don't know what to do with.
Right. Right. No, I hear you. I think that was part of the reason why I also started in a different path
Hmm.
because of that financial implication.
Yeah. And what path was that?
Well, so I actually became a nurse as a second degree, right? So my first time around in school, I graduated with a bachelor's in German studies. Believe it or not, ja, ich kann auf Deutsch sprechen. Sehr gut. So that's as much as I could probably say right now. But
What does that mean?
you know what? I don't know. I just speak it. I don't understand it. So no. So I first started my college track.
Isn't
Uh,
that does that mean like something about nursing? Or
Certainly not.
I know in German, what is that? Nurse. Nurse is like a medicine sister. What is it? In
So it's a combination of two
oh,
words.
Krankenschwester, right?
Yes, however, I am not a Schwester. I am a Bruder
Oh, okay.
because of
Oh,
my everything going on over here. Because I'm not a sister. I'm a brother. So it's a Krankenbruder is a male nurse, and a Krankenschwester a female nurse. But I digress. The point is that
oh, that's nice that they make that differential in their language. We don't have
they're
that in
very
English.
specific,
Mm-mm.
which helped because I'm also very black and white. So it helped me to learn the language. But the first time around, I went and I graduated with a degree in German studies. I was able to go abroad and study abroad. I think that's an amazing opportunity for all of you out there who are considering this whole study abroad option. Do it. The world is bigger than where you're from, and having that exposure was amazing. And I still remember a lot of lessons from that time. But coming back, after this first time around, I really didn't know what I was going to do with this degree. I had taken a lot of my pre med stuff, which also coincides with your pre nursing, which also coincides with your pre PA. Really, a lot of healthcare professionals have to take, let's call it 10 courses of sciences. And so I didn't really know. And at the same time, I had been working as a New York City EMT, responding to 911 jobs. And I had a really great experience getting to know physicians, doctors, PAs, and nurses. And it really helped me to understand just a little bit of what everybody does. And initially, I thought I was like, "Ah, I'm dead set. I'm going to go the PA route. But more bumps on the road, right? Fortunately, I met my future wife. And at that time, she was like, you should be a nurse. And I was like, I don't think so. I was a little bit more
No,
emphatic
tell
than
them
that.
what you really said.
I don't recall 100%.
Tell them how you really felt about us.
I felt not enthusiastic. I would say that. Is that
Come
okay? Is that
on,
enough?
come on.
I
You
was
said, I will never. do what you do.
I didn't bop my head like this.
Never.
I did not move my head like this.
Yes, you did. You moved your head,
I was more
and
like,
you almost and you really yelled. You really
well,
yelled.
everybody yelled. It was New York. And
We were at dinner.
we were,
We were at dinner.
people were yelling too.
No,
The chef yelled. Anyways,
you
the
were the
point
only
is,
one yelling.
no, I was, the point is that the first time around, I didn't graduate with a degree in nursing. And so I was fortunate to have my beautiful wife slash mentor slash coach slash everything to find a program in Philadelphia where I was able to enter as a second degree. So that was my start of my journey, and the start really of our journey as a couple, like leaving New York City to explore a different state, a different city. And so I entered the profession or the studies as a second degree with the intention to pursue a graduate degree because it had been built, three classes were built in for like graduate level courses into the program. So then that was at Jefferson University. Go Jeff. That's why I went because it's at Jeffit. I thought it was Jeffit when I went and I saw the banners that said Jeffit, and I saw a helicopter that says, Jeff Stat. It turned out it was Jeff IT, which is a strong program. But in my head, I was just gonna Jeff it, and so I went there. I Jeffed it, and 2 years passed.
And you've been jeffing it ever since.
I continued to Jeff it, and that was my start, right, in nursing. So I graduated a bachelor's in nursing. That's the second degree. And started working a little bit there in Philadelphia in the pediatric world, in the cardiac ICU. And then I was fortunate enough, well, we had our baby, we had our son, right? And so he was born in Philly. And then we decided, hey, I think we should come back to New York. But before we came back, you were also pursuing, at that time, you had already went back to school and you finished your bachelor's.
Mm-hmm.
And then you started pursuing your master's while I was pursuing my bachelor's,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then, so tell us a little bit about that. Because this is the other thing about education and nursing, right? It's not all 100% clear cut. There are nurses that pursue a nurse practitioner role, and that makes me helps you become a provider, and then you go that route. Some nurses become a nurse anesthetist; they go through the CRNA route. However, you and I took two very different routes in nursing that many people were like, "What do you do with that?" Right? And I still ask myself, what do I do with this?
What did we do with this?
What are we doing with this?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit the program that you took and where you took it.
So at my bachelor's degree, which you told me I needed to get, I was really fortunate because I took a class with a nurse practitioner, actually a psych nurse practitioner. Her expertise was in addiction, which she loved, and God bless her. But she was a fantastic professor, like really interesting, very funny, and very supportive, and something I had not experienced up until that point because the people that were in my associate degree program were not funny or supportive.
Right. You went to a school full of nuns too.
That was my,
That
yeah,
was your bachelor's.
my
That was
bachelor's,
your,
yeah.
Sorry, I remember that. The nuns, they were nice but serious.
No, they were great. I
Yes.
really liked the nuns.
Me too.
They fed you, right?
They sure did.
They gave you some good food.
They did.
They
They fed
was
the
some
soul.
very good food at that school. Shout out to Felician College in Lodi, New Jersey. At the time, there had some good food. I don't know if anybody's listening if they still have good food, but they were very kind to me.
Very much.
And that was something that I had never experienced. So this one professor who was very brilliant, funny, and also supportive, which was an interesting combination. I asked her where she went to school for her master's degree, and she said the University of Pennsylvania. And then throughout my bachelor's degree, I was reading a lot of articles by this one nurse, Linda Aiken, who wrote this groundbreaking article that at the time I felt very controversial, that nurses that have a BSN have better outcomes than nurses that have an associate degree. Which I felt very challenged by, being a charge nurse in the ER. Like, is this degree going to help my patients have better outcomes?
Right, right. Because you had worked at that time, you worked in Manhattan, you worked in the Bronx, right? You worked in small town USA, right? And like Westchester. So you had a different type of patients everywhere, right? But you were working it out with your associate's degree.
Right. and I was doing really well.
Mm-hmm.
And really, at that point in time, I really didn't have any other aspirations other than being the best nurse that I could be, and at the bedside,
Right.
and being a charge nurse in the ER at 25 years old. I was like, I don't really see how it gets any better than this, because I saw nurses who were twice my age in that role.
Right.
So I was like, well, I think I'm doing pretty well here. I'm not really sure what degrees, right? These bachelor's, master's degrees have to do with my career
Right.
if it's going so well. Certainly not the connection between having a degree and then the patient's doing well or not doing well.
Right. Right. Right.
So that made me really curious as to what this other school could possibly offer and who are these people that are coming out of there.
Right.
So that kind of like sparked my interest in going further.
So what did you study there?
So I got a master's degree in health leadership. So I have a master's of science in nursing and with a concentration in health leadership. I also have a certificate in healthcare innovation.
So tell me a little bit about that because I don't know what that means. What exactly you're innovating and what exactly are you leading? Is that like something for people who want to be the nurse manager or maybe be a director and then go this chief nursing officer route, like very systematic, or is that something that you can kind of explore different things that maybe we haven't heard of?
I think you can explore many different things with that degree. What was really awesome was learning about health policy,
Mm,
learning about like the Affordable Care Act.
mm-hmm,
We did certainly have nurses in traditional leadership roles. I had a class where there was four CNOs that came to the class and we
mm,
got to talk to them about their leadership styles.
I see.
That is not at UPenn. They do have a traditional administration program,
Mm-hmm,
but there was parts of it that were administrative.
mm-hmm,
Though we talked about management, leadership styles. But we also, I also took a class like in architecture and healthcare design.
mm.
So that was really interesting. Also studied nursing history, which was fascinating. So lots of things,
There
lots
was
of things.
also the lobbying aspect, and there was a course on that too, right? I recall.
Yes, there was a course in lobbying, which was really difficult. um, because yeah, there was lots of different aspects to that.
And so I liked about that program, I remember, is that you didn't necessarily go to classes restricted to like the School of Nursing, but you were able to go to like the School of Public Health. I think it was Wharton was one of them, right? Like the School of I guess Architecture, right? There was different schools that you were able to go in and take classes, which is part of this whole program to expose you to a variety of different career paths, right? Because like what exactly like in health design, like what are nurses doing in that?
Well, like in health design, you're looking at the environment of how we deliver healthcare.
Mm,
And then I think part of the reason why we had classes with so many other people is like we talk about it, an interdisciplinary team.
got it.
And how are we fostering that in education?
Mm,
And at UPenn, they take that very seriously, right? It's not, we're not going to just educate nurses in a silo and
gotcha.
then tell them to go out there and talk to doctors, talk to PT, OT, all these people if we haven't given that to them in the classroom.
Oh, no, absolutely. That's key. So that's good. That's great.
Yeah. So I think it leads us to sort of like this question that we wanted to talk about was like when we talk traditionally to nurses or we looked at a lot of other channels, right? People are just like, how do I make money? Why would I do a master's degree if it's going to get me only X amount of dollars from my current position?
Right.
A bachelor's degree from an associate's is the way I looked at it. I think I gained 75 cents on the dollar. Um, but I think it led us to like a much greater conversation.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, we had been discussing about like because a lot of the nurses that I speak with, most recently, I'm always trying to encourage them, like, hey, you going back to school? What's the next steps? What are you doing? And now we currently have this whole doctoral track, right? The PhD versus the DNP, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of the graduate programs already come with a DNP built in. So, but I've noticed a lot of nurses like, I don't know, I just want to get a master's, and I don't think I want to go back for my PhD or my DNP. Like I'm one of them. I personally don't feel like going back for a DNP or a PhD. If anything, I probably would go back for a law degree, like
Hmm.
do law school, right? And then get a JD and see how I can incorporate, right, my clinical background with my with a legal, right? So, and see what I can use, how I can merge both, and then be productive in that realm. Because I think we need more nurses in health in law, and I think that we bring a different perspective. So, but that's good. So in my trajectory, so I also went to I went back to school in 2018 because I was fortunate to be working in an organization that created a program for the nurses that worked in that organization to attend a program at Columbia University in New York City. And at Columbia, um, they created a cohort of about 40 nurses, and I was part of the second cohort. And it was geared towards what's called advanced clinical management and leadership. And the idea being that the nurses that attended this program and did graduated in 2.5 years, they can spread out. They can do the traditional administrative route, right, which a lot of my classmates did. They continue to be a manager or patient care director or even directors, um, or they did something completely different. But the idea is they did expose us to different avenues. Like there was a lot of meet and greets. That also networking was key. I think in both Columbia and at UPenn, the networking was incredible because we were able to meet people that were doing different things.
Hmm.
Things that we didn't even know existed. So for us, that was a plus. Um, and so in my case, I ended up after that I went into operations, right? And particularly when it comes to transplant and lung transplant. And so for me, I was able to work as an operations manager and really see the realm of that.
Yeah, but you got that job while you were in school.
I did get the job. It was That's another story for another time. But yes, I did get the job while I was in school. But the schooling helped me a lot to actually do a lot more with that job,
Hmm.
and it helped me understand the job from a different perspective. I like to think that I was able to perform a little higher and better because of what I had learned in that program, and certainly because of a lot of just again back to innovation techniques and the communication techniques and the exposure that it provided me to other leaders to learn what do leaders do, right? Because it's hard to know that. It's hard to you can't just open up a book, and there's so many books out there. So it helped me understand that. But one thing I remember, and this is something that we talk about often, is about this DMP and PhD. In our schooling, we met people from an international, from other countries. So we were able to meet professionals from Dubai, from England, from Singapore. Right? So there were so many other professionals that we noticed that outside of healthcare in the United States, they might not necessarily know what a DMP is. However, people know what a PhD is and people know what an MBA is. So, for example, I don't have an MSN, right? I have an MS, even though I attended the Columbia University School of Nursing. And so, a lot of times, we were told, hey, this is, it's a pro because when you talk to people outside of healthcare, they understand what a master's of science is. It might be a little more trickier to expand on what exactly is a master's of science in nursing. So there's a lot of things to consider when you're looking at these graduate programs from an angle of marketability, exposure, obviously the financial. I was fortunate that in the organization I worked at while I was attending graduate school, they actually paid for it at 100%. So that was an incredible blessing and an incredible program that I think was just so unique. So there's a lot of things to consider. Um, but we also started talking about the benefits of credentialing, right, and certifications,
Hmm.
and how that also plays a role in the idea of education.
Hmm.
Because I recall when I was at the bedside, oftentimes I would ask people like, "Oh, you think you're going back to school? You think about a master's? You think about this?" And they're like, "No, I get paid more to have my CCRN, which is a critical care certification, versus getting paid more to have a master's or a bachelor's. And I found that really at odd, right? Because I was like, I don't understand how that works. But because of these systems that we do have in place, sometimes I just feel like education is not promoted as much as it should be.
Mm.
And it's really so beneficial, not just for the individual to grow and to think differently and to ask different questions and to see things in a different way and to come up with solutions to things that we don't even know it's a problem. But I think more importantly, it's our patients. They end up, the outcomes are improved. There's different ways that we can just help the system a little better. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, it's a difficult decision,
Hmm.
right? Because it is financial.
Right.
And a lot of people, like myself, came into this not really knowing how to balance um, your own personal finance with goals. And I think that's a skill
Hmm.
that we need to maybe develop either, now I think they're even going over that personal finance even in elementary school.
Yeah, for sure.
I think our son is learning how to save for big purchases, and they're even teaching that in church, I think.
Yeah,
they
yeah,
they give them little money, and then if they save up enough, they can get a much bigger prize as opposed to a smaller prize.
right,
Um, so those kind of object lessons, a lot of people like myself were not fortunate to have those.
right,
Even though I did well in school, I definitely knew I wanted to be a great nurse. I wanted to take care of patients. Um, I didn't know how to do those growing steps,
right,
right? So what we're talking about is like personal growth,
right,
right? And I think combining personal growth and also professional growth, that's what education can provide, right?
right,
And a lot of times people are looking for an equation. I certainly was looking for an equation like, you want me to get a bachelor's degree for what? Right? Like, is
right,
it, I wanted to see a particular position, right? I wanted to see maybe a particular income bracket,
right.
a particular lifestyle. Certainly being from New York, you're like, well, am I going to be able to buy a house after this? Like, right? You want to do some type of math.
Right.
Um, but, sometimes the math is not mathing, right?
That's for sure. Yeah.
Um, so it's difficult, right? And I think too, coming from a lower socioeconomic background too, you're looking at a school like, the school that I went to for my master's, UPenn is really up there. It's really expensive.
Hmm.
Um, but I think it takes sometimes meeting the people, you know, talking to those people that went to those schools and maybe even a couple years out. Because had you talked to me maybe like 2, 3 years ago, I probably would have been like, don't you ever go there. Don't you ever. You are wasting your money and I hate everybody there. But with time and experience, I realized that those experiences were completely invaluable. There's no dollar amount that
Right.
can be assigned to that because I think differently,
Right.
right? I can be in a room with physicians. One of the classes I took there, one of the physicians had wrote ACLS,
Mm.
right? So this person is brilliant,
Hmm.
and we had a very contentious conversation where we were talking about values and about environment actually, right? And at the time, I was struggling with self-esteem issues,
Hmm.
um, extreme anxiety because of my socioeconomic upbringing, because of some self-esteem issues that I was going through. But now I reflect on that conversation, right? And it was actually regarding environment and how environment can impact health.
Right.
And he was like, "Do you really believe this? That like a nice, beautiful place can make you feel better?" And I was like, "Absolutely, sir. Absolutely, it can make you feel better." And he was like, "I don't believe that. That's bullshit." And I was like, "Well, it's really easy for you to say, right? You're a physician who makes over, at least over $200,000 a year. When's the last time that you've been in the hood?" Right? I was
Right.
living in the hood, you know? So I knew
Right.
when I left our apartment that was right next to the highway, that was right next to trash, that was right next to rats, right? When we left to the Airbnb to go to Philadelphia to go to my Ivy League school, that I felt a hell of a lot better,
Much better, yeah.
right? I wasn't having an asthma attack there. Um, so, but I reflect on that
Right,
conversation. I would not have had that conversation had I went to school online. And I certainly would never have had that conversation had I never went to school, period.
right. No,
Right.
that's a good point. That's a really good point.
And now raising our kids, right? Like I'm like, what is the value of places of education?
Right,
Is it the education itself? Is it the paper? Absolutely not. It's not just the paper. Sure, the paper is great. It's in Latin. It's fantastic. However, it's sitting in our office.
right,
But what I take with me is I'm not afraid to talk to anybody.
right. That's correct. No, you're absolutely right. I think that you bring up a lot of very good points. So it is absolutely the paper in itself is nothing unless you use the knowledge it came with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just use it outwardly, right? So like, well, I learned this, so I'm going to do this at work, but it's more like internally. That's where the true work goes in, right? Because
Yeah.
we have to, you just taught me recently. I have to be willingness, right? I have to have willingness to be able to achieve a higher level of understanding of myself, which then in turn helps me um, you know, bring my A game,
Mm-hmm.
to my patients, to my team, to my staff, to my employer, and bring them my best because that's the goal, right? But in order for that to happen, like you need to look inwardly. You have to
Absolutely.
look inwardly.
But also, I think with education, what I have learned most recently is that it's not a transaction, right?
Right.
And I think a lot of times when you grow up on the struggle, you're looking for a transaction,
For sure.
right? You're looking for, I'm going to give you $100 and you're going to give me a product that's going to make me feel something different, that's going to make me be something different. And what I'm seeing and what I've learned is that the more that time passes on that huge investment, the more I change, the
Hmm.
more I think differently, the more peace I have, right? Because I'm able to critically think because I have a global world view that no
Right.
one can take away from me. A lot of people say, oh, you can never take my degree. Actually, they can, right?
Yeah, if you lose your accreditation.
They can take your degree away from you. However, if you've learned to think differently, right, then your environment can change. Then you can change within your environment,
Right.
right? Then you can go after health, you can go after wealth, and you can go after creativity, which is why we're able to be in this space,
Absolutely.
right? So there is exponential growth, and that's what I think when I think about education, I think about continual growth. For me personally, that's been my experience.
Hmm.
But that didn't necessarily, like I said, take place in school or even immediately after. That was a continual process of ongoing learning.
Hmm. That's good. That's really good. So there you have it. We wanted to talk about education and the benefits of them. We wanted to take a different take on it and not really just start listing out, MSN for this and MSN for that and NP and CR. These are things that you can all find. These
Mm-hmm.
are things that many people have done videos on. What we wanted to really share on and gleam on is what do we do with it, right?
Right.
What do we do with it when we obtain it, which is really the main reason of also why we should obtain it,
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, a lot of people can tell you, like, you could look at prerequisites, you could look at the price of the program, you could look at,
online
see,
versus, right?
when I was going to school, that people were saying C plus equals RN. I don't know if they were talking about that when you were in school. That
I
was a
don't know.
big thing for me.
Definitely not at Jefferson, no, or Columbia. They did not.
That was just my hood school,
A
huh?
little bit,
In
a little bit.
Yonkers.
Yeah, that's a special school.
But nevertheless, it's not. I think really, it's not a transaction. It's how that's gonna impact how you view the world, right? And what are those experiences gonna give you at the end, right? An ongoing appreciation for your career. Are
Yeah,
you gonna continue to grow? Even though I had such a rocky start, I was able to do so many different things, right?
yeah, same. I mean, I think one of the wonderful, I have so many great memories because of my journey in education, but I remember one of them, it was, because of where I went, and that led me to my job. I was able to learn again from the doctors I worked with. I learned so much from them, and these are, pediatric intensivists or cardiologists, that I learned so much. I remember one of them said to me, it was like 3 in the morning, and all I would see is this fellow read and read and read articles, and I was like, how much do you read? And he says to me, he's like, do you know how many articles you need to read as a doctor to be considered practicing at the top of your license, like in the most advanced medicine there is? And I was like, no. He's like, 20 articles a day. I was like, 20 articles? That's ridiculous. I was like, how do you get to do 20 articles a day? He says, well, if you want to practice at the top of your license, then you prioritize it and you do it. And at that time, I'm like, I can't read 20, And now, flash forward, what, 10 years? I I look forward to reading articles. I look forward to reading and to learning and to be able to share with my team to be like, hey, this is something I picked up. Maybe it can help you. I think you should read it. It'll be great. But there's just so much out there, and this it's not everything's not always good, right? So that's why you need to read a lot to be able to discern from the good, the bad. I don't know about that, but again, like that's what education provided me is this discernment, this ability to understand what am I really reading here? Is this something uh, that is that is true research? Is this what am I really? And so be able to assess its quality. So again, education is much more than the degree. It's much more than the piece of paper that you get. Mine is in Latin, by the way, it's in English, so I don't know why yours is in Latin. It's a dead language, but doesn't matter. Point is that it's still really nice.
I think it's one of the first schools in the United States, something like that.
I don't know. Mine was King's College before it was Columbia. So I don't know. That the point is that education is an amazing advantage and blessing that we all have that we should all um, you know take advantage of. It's out there. We can learn so much more than what we have. And that takes place, outside of what we know and in different institutions and different programs. And I encourage you all to really strongly consider for yourself, for your own personal growth, for your own professional growth, and to take it as like, okay, I'm going in there and I'm going to learn something and I'm going to learn about myself because that's really what it comes down to. Learning about yourself is so important. And don't consider it a transaction because oftentimes you won't get that quick, remuneration. You graduate and then you get a job that pays you X amount of dollars more. That's seldom the case. And if it is wonderful, that's fantastic, and I congratulate you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. But that should not be the goal. The real goal should be the self growth, because that I think that for us personally, it allowed us to have different types of conversations than we were having 15 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, and led us to different things.
Yeah, and then there's not always like a traditional, right? Like what we touched on, which is like certifications and also like ongoing conferences, right?
Hmm.
You may say like, like Alisa, I can't afford this. I got like kids. I got this. I understand, and certainly when I think about a PhD, I think about my kids. Like I'm not going to school because I don't want to take time away from my kids.
Hmm.
100%. However, I am doing a certification. I'm doing my nurse coaching certification, and I'm going to attend conferences, and certainly continue to read articles. So having that ongoing learning uh, can also add, right? Taking a course on your specialty, right?
Yeah.
Like just investing $400 on a course as opposed to, obviously a whole degree could be up to 80K, right? But even those little investments, those micro investments, if you will,
Hmm.
they can really make a huge difference. Early in my career, which is why I got so confident and I think why I was chosen to be charged, is because I took so many of those classes.
Hmm.
They were employer sponsored at the time, but they sent us to places outside of that hospital to learn from other people, and gave huge perspective on. I took a 4-day triage class, like 4 days
Hmm.
to learn how to triage. Oh, that is really long,
Yeah.
you know? Um, and because of that, I think I became an expert right after that. And that was a huge investment for the hospital, but really, like, knowing, being able to make a decision confidently, that's just amazing, right?
Absolutely. I agree. I mean, I have this wonderful idea of doing this law degree, but similar to you, I don't want to miss my kids, skating competition or my daughter's whatever she's into the gymnastics courses, whatever the case is. But I also am like pursuing my and nurse executive board certification, right? So then being able to learn from the material that it takes to practice for the exam, and then being able to really again continue to read. Um, and an important leader I work for, she said to me one time, leaders are readers. So that stuck with me. Leaders are readers, and I through reading it has helped me also humble myself. To like, definitely did not know that, and here I thought I was doing the right thing. So just remember, leaders are readers, and it's about your own personal growth and professional growth as well. So I encourage you all to seek some sort of education. It'll do you amazing wonders, but also your patience. Your patience will benefit from a lot of what you're pouring into yourself.
Yeah, let us know in the comments if you've taken any particular classes, certifications, or degrees that really change the way that you think and change your life at work or outside of work. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Thank you again for joining us. Join us again next time where we will continue to be recording our podcast. And our next episode will be focusing on a really sensitive topic that I know a lot of people talk about but don't really know what to do about it. And that's
Burnout.
burnout.
See you next
So
time.
see you next time. Thank you.